Skyrim, the game that will have you googling how many versions it has, is arguably one of the best stories of all time. You play as the Dragonborn and are forced to track down all the dragons you can, while birthing more dragons in an attempt to take over the world. But what if you were the weakest mommy of all time and were unable to receive any amount of damage? Can you beat Skyrim without taking damage? Chances are you've already heard of Skyrim and know that I left a few key plot points out of that original summary. If you are a fan of Skyrim or challenge runs, you might even recall that this run has been done more times than the hair follicles on my groin. I may be relatively clean shaven in that particular area, but I am rather unkempt in my knowledge of Skyrim. I haven't touched the game in over 5 years. If it sounds interesting to you to watch a noob die over and over again, join me as I immediately find a way to break the game in the first cutscene and create my character. I go with the most basic brawn I can muster before giving myself a random name from the list of women who have hurt me emotionally and with consent physically. Watching a doctor administer a lethal dose of pain medication, I start hallucinating that a giant lizard landed on top of a cobblestone pillar. The big, fluffy beast sparks me to head into the command console and painstakingly type in the command that sets my health to 1. Wanting to ensure that the command was working, I stepped out in front of the hairy lizard, only to realize that I had made myself immortal. Now I can finally rob ice cream stores for free vanilla ice cream cones without getting 6 months in prison. On the bright side, the command works, and I run to the side of the tower with insert name here, and get out of my binds by engaging in knife play. Soon afterwards, I find out that my safe word doesn't work as well as what I had hoped, and succumb to my first of many deaths. Combat for the most part is going to consist of a whole lot of death. You can reasonably assume that for every enemy I kill, that I died at least one time trying to kill them. That applies especially for mages. Getting one shot is hard work, but someone has to do it, and that someone shouldn't be me due to my mental health issues. But here I am, running past spiders that shoot acidic sperm, and getting my steps in the beautiful game that is Skyrim. Normally I like to play as a stealth archer, but given that Paul was the more smart one, and did this video way before I was even born, I decided to stick with being a mage. When I was being big-brained and taking this challenge seriously, it wasn't too bad. Given that I don't take very many things seriously outside of hoarding everything imaginable, it wasn't uncommon for me to die by charging straight at an archer. Blasting my way through all the guards outside of Bleak Falls Barrow and getting a surprise round in on the first few cuties inside, I solved the hardest puzzle that I've ever had to solve in my entire life. That's right, I found a terminal from the Fallout franchise. Pumping it into high gear for a little bit, I get jump scared by some rats that I had completely forgotten about. Kill a spider that looks like they would be great at tying me up. Destroy some rather wrinkly old men that use way too much Axe body spray. Fill the holes of this door in the only way I know how. And realize that I am almost entirely naked when taking down the big bad guy. A nice little swim later and I suddenly realize that you can't drink from large bodies of water. As a member of both the Itty Bitty Titty Committee and Hydro Homies International, I find that despicable and immersion breaking. The Gatherer of the Balls seemed to not have much to say to my complaint, but ironically I found solace in that of my enemy. You see, Farengar lost something too when the Water Nation attacked. His right testicle. In terms of what perks I grabbed, I only stuck with the Destruction Tree. Can't go wrong with more damage. After all, glass cannon setups are all the rage according to Wikipedia. Many deaths later in the sudden realization that I should just wait for the NPCs to fight, I steal both the soul and bones of my enemy like my 1% Native American heritage implores me to do. Since I've already turned over a bad leaf, I also stole a horse. His name is Michelangelo, in honor of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figure that was taken from me when I got a B on my report card back in 2nd grade. Michelangelo is a beautiful steed, carrying me on her back in all of her gender-fluid majesticness. Through the harshest of terrains we traveled, from the deadliest rapids to the coldest of winters. As I grew close to freezing to death and was on the cusp of cutting her open, I reached safety in a collection of old men who smell a lot like my grandpa's old dirty socks. Don't ask. These men taught me to run super fast in the event that someone were to try to touch me in my no-no square in exchange for my promise to obtain the recorder from their very first music class. While I was eager to take on this challenge, my time with Michelangelo made me forget about the actual journey that I was taking, both spiritually and sexually. I died more times in these crypts than I had the entire playthrough, which isn't saying much because we're only a few minutes into this video, but that doesn't make me remember this dungeon with any more fondness. Another thing I was introduced to in a greater capacity was traps, specifically these floor flame pressure traps. I'm really not sure if there's a way to disarm them or if I should have just whirl run sprinted across, but instead I chose to jump off cliff in the most stylish way possible. Bonus points for that slide. Perhaps the most beneficial shot that I obtained this playthrough was Become Mithril. We'll talk a bit more about it when I have background footage that pertains to it, but in the meantime I will absolutely destroy some skeletons. Like, look at how good Owl is at cutting out the 6 times that he died. I used that cool ability I got for running away from creeps and dying a few more times due to the fire flaps. That is what I'm going to call them, as it combines floor and traps into a singular word, flaps. Of course, one could put aside their dignity and procure the word for flaps, but at that point, all meaning of the word is completely eradicated from existence. Moments like these make me wish I had a British accent. Grabbing the old people's recorders and getting a cool cinematic kill streak, I say hello to some cultists that most definitely won't be trouble later on before making Delphine regret ever inviting me into her sex dungeon by stealing all of her valuable possessions. I meet the old friends Fire and Grassburn before bravely fighting a dragon. I know it may look like I'm getting my rear end handed to me, but I guarantee if that were the case, you'd be hearing a lot of slurping sounds because that booty is fat. Like, I am double cheeked up on a Saturday night while typing this script. I also need to tinkle a little bit because I just had some Gatorade, but unfortunately we have no time to fight crocodiles, and instead need to raid a party. Putting on the most dapper of fists at my disposal, I immediately go back to my college days and start making out with the bartender. He takes me deeper into the back, where I am shoved up against a wall and used brutally. Dealing with the embassy really taught me things about myself that I still have no rights in knowing. Between a combination of become ethereal and running for my life, I made it outside with my pride less than intact. I really needed to learn how to deal with these guys because the basic flame spell wasn't cutting it, and I wasn't in the position yet to just reload a save. I had been using shouts, but not effectively. Swapping to Fusro, I fling these guys around farther than that one time I faced Usain Bolt in a pissing contest. That man is fast at everything. With that newfound knowledge and way more persistence than I had thought I ever had, I grabbed the documents that I was sent here to collect, rescued a super hot guy who was chained up for my delight, set a guy on fire after more resets than I have fingers, said hello to the cultist and Goodsprings again, and made sweet, sweet love to Delphine. After I had finished, a cage was locked around me, and she gave the key to the cultist outside. While I was initially frustrated, it wasn't long before I was off to find a man to truly satisfy her. On my journey, I killed a rat, a guy who is really good at fisting, a woman with a big axe, and a bunch of Thalmor soldiers. After destroying all of my enemies with very little effort and finding a man strong enough to truly please my wife, we have a nice little meeting where I have to fill out a kink list. I answer yes to everything because I'm a bottom who is touch deprived before stealing another horse to get to Delphine's next task, a new bedroom. I won't give this horse a name because they are only in 2 clips, but know that I think it is very beautiful, or at least it was before it got eaten by the dragon that was circling the area. I take the backseat inside while my masters tackle the enemies before I run into another puzzle. I genuinely don't know how I did this or even what I did, but somehow I got the door unlocked within 20 seconds. If only Fallout terminals were this easy. Following the Dragon Brick Road and revisiting the activity that I liked doing in high school, I throw on a maid outfit and get to dusting. I was so out of it at this point that I really have no clue what is going on or why I'm even here. So I went to the guys with gray beards and did some continuing education hours for CPR. It was a Friday, the air was a little chilly, especially with me just wearing my scrubs. I was on the way to a CPR class on the 2nd floor of a college. The hospital I was working at didn't offer training, so it was up to the staff to find a class to attend. The overcast sky made me uneasy, as if something was lurking around each hallway I passed. Ceiling lights were on, but rather dim. Memories of middle school and how they dimmed the lights to save energy provided some comfort, but the lack of life began to disturb me. Perhaps I went to the wrong building. The sound of glass shattering shook my core, with one shard sliding all the way to the edge of my shoe. I bent down and cautiously grabbed the chunk of glass. As I held it in my hand, I could barely see my own reflection. Curious, I walked towards the pane of glass that was spread across the floor. Crunching beneath my shoes made me wince, but no real thoughts went through my head. I was drawn into whatever had caused the glass to break, the lights to be dim, or the people to be missing. 2 glass walls normally separated the hallway from some kind of workshop. The tools and lumber that were spread across the tabletops and the half-finished clocks that sat at each station all created a feeling of emptiness. But it's what I didn't see in the corner that was truly disturbing. About halfway into the room, still calling out to anyone who could be there, my shoe slipped and I fell flat on my back. A shot of pain went up my spine, but as I went to get up, my hand slipped on the tile. At this point, I couldn't see, the hallway light not reaching this far into the room. So I pulled out my phone and turned on its flashlight. Blood was smeared all over the floor. Handprints looked as though that they were grasped onto the legs of the table, fighting for dear life. As I followed the trail and flashed my light into the corner of the room, furthest from the two glass walls, I finally saw it. The pile of bodies. A sound erupted from what I had believed to be a storage closet, and I immediately bolted for the hallway. As my muscles pumped, I stuck to the edges of the path to avoid the blood and was careful to avoid the glass. The screech followed. Each hallway looked the same as my vision blurred, but as I passed a similar set of curved windows and saw the door leading to the staircase, a moment of relief went through my body. Then it went away. As I ran up to the door and pushed on the bar going across, I realized that the door was locked. I looked behind me, and there it was. There she was. Holding a torch with her new man, Delphine sent me to find an Elder Scroll. The first place that was suggested to look was the College of Winterhold. To get in, I used my Dragonborn status and shouted at a rather kind woman. How's that for ableism? I spent roughly 5 minutes inside trying to figure out how this quest works before flinging myself off the edge of the mountain. Become ethereal allows me to take no damage for a set period of time, but I like to think that I survived this fall simply because I'm pretty amazing. In fact, you should consider subscribing because of how amazing I am. I found a Sigma male in a cave, and he told me that I need to go to a specific spot on the map where some Dwemer ruins are at. Feeling completely content with my life, I jump off another mountain and proceed to spend the next 30 minutes with my prostate clenched. I crossed very deadly Pusharunskis, jumped off even more platforms, pushed a bunch of Thalmor into a trap after winning the sickest rap battle of history, had my liver surgically removed by new technologies, swam in some irradiated water, took an elevator ride to the penthouse, and pressed a crap ton of buttons. If you were ever tasked with making a puzzle for a video game, please make it so simple that even a person with less than average intelligence can figure it out. I still have no clue how I solved this puzzle, but it made me feel very big-brained. Thanks, Skyrim. Reading the book I got from Book Fair Day and watching a D&D party try to seduce Alduin, I began the worst part of this entire run. Alduin himself really isn't that bad, but when he summons meteors, I want to curl up into the fetal position and cut open Michelangelo to finally feel the warmth in my sexy toes again. Unfortunately, she left me for another, more attractive horse, so I am forced to just die over and over and over again. To summarize, I died a lot. Once again, feeling uncontent with my life, I jump off another cliff far enough that I could fast travel away. This tactical choice was made so that I could finally grab Lydia, the horse I mentioned just a second ago. This unfortunately didn't make the whole battle as easy as what I had hoped, but in the end, between her, Discount Mario, and a fire breath, we were able to take down Alduin so that he could fly away and come again another day. I have a meeting so boring that my head starts spinning, hit up a dragon for a booty call, hide behind a wall longer than it takes to eat a foot long from Subway, and prepare my inner bard so that I could successfully seduce a dragon. Much to my dismay, the dragon told me that he only dates mages who can cast more than one offensive skill. Taking a jaunt over to the College of Winterhold and speaking with Ferilda for a few spells and a little bit of destruction training, I am finally able to ride the dragon in more ways than one. I would have gotten Bad Dragon to sponsor this video, but unfortunately I have heard that they have pretty poor taste. Now with my new spells and an eagerness to die in a fire, I could start pushing towards Sovngarde. I, of course, still needed to run away like a chicken with my head cut off, but it's normal for me to run away from my problems. I remember the night I ran away from home like it was yesterday. I was only 12 years old, but I had felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. My parents had been fighting nonstop about how tight money was, and I couldn't take it anymore. I knew I needed to get away. I packed a small bag with some clothes, a flashlight, and a few snacks, and slipped out of the window of my bedroom. I didn't have a plan, but I knew I needed to get as far away as possible. I walked for hours across the countryside, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know where I was going, but I kept moving. As the sun began to set, I found myself in the forest about 10 miles away. I felt a sense of calm wash over me as I sat down on a fallen tree. For the first time in a long time, I felt free, but as the darkness settled in, I began to feel scared. I had almost no idea where I was, and I didn't have any shelter. I started the night huddled under a tree, shivering in the cold. I tried to sleep, but every little noise made me jump. A branch cracked, and I immediately focused on where it came from. A deer stood in the distance, visible by the moonlight glancing off of its fur. I froze, not wanting to scare it away. But to my surprise, the deer approached me. It was like it knew I needed a friend. I reached out my hand and the deer nuzzled against it. It was as if we had known each other for years. I spent the night with the deer, walking through the forest and enjoying the beauty around me. As the sun began to rise, the deer nudged me towards a clearing. In the center was a canvas and some paints. At first I was hesitant, I hadn't tried painting before. But the deer nudged me again, as if encouraging me to try. With nothing to lose, I picked up a brush and began to paint. As I created, I felt something stir within me. It was a feeling of joy and happiness that I hadn't felt before. The deer watched me as I painted, occasionally nudging me for attention. I could feel the weight leave my shoulders as the canvas filled. It was as if the animal knew that the secret to finding happiness was to tap into our creative energy. After the deer and I said our goodbyes, I walked away from the clearing with a newfound sense of purpose. I realized that happiness was not only found in money, it was found in the simple act of creating. And create fireballs is exactly what I did. I tried originally rushing past the bad guy who wanted my nipples for himself, but for some reason that didn't seem to work out well for either of us. I died and he didn't get my nipples. The second run went much better and I was able to just dance my way inside, but something compelled me to try to kill the guy regardless. I don't know why I'm being cryptic, the reason I wanted to kill him was his fancy helmet, but that was before I knew that it was Glass's armor, which made me a little sad. After bum rushing him a few times and taking cover, I launched another ball of hot stuff in his direction and see that the helmet would be really nice to have, but impossible to wear due to the armor messing with how we take damage. Reloading a save I had made after the second run, I ran into farts as bad as the time that I had chili before going into a haunted house. Let's just say that there may have been a little bit more than gas coming out of that particular hole. Soon was a little bit of a pushover, I admired the cutlery, shouted at my farts, and attempted to fight Alduin. This time around things were actually a lot easier. I was able to successfully dodge all the meteors with the dexterity of a pregnant penguin, and utilize the increased distance with the spells that I picked up to avoid just running straight at a wall of fire. In the end, I was victorious, unable to loot Alduin's body, and rather pleased with how Hatsune looked, proving that yes, I can beat Skyrim without taking damage. Yes, this run was unimpressive, but chances are you liked it a little bit, even if it was just the tip. If that's the case and you want to see some more, let me know what DLC I should check out with this character. Here's some more videos, click them if you want, and thank you to my patrons for always being so dang cute. Anyways, I've been Owl, but do me a favor will ya? Have a good one.